I think about that so many times because I think that my obsession about food comes from that age. You know why? Because my mom and my parents, they were born just after or during my father or just after the Second World War.
Let's just pick up and the thread of this around obsession, as you mentioned it. As you started to come into adulthood and you started to have that independence and decide where you were going to go in life, how did that obsession manifest at that point?
Because everybody can do it. You know, you have to put your company, your work in a way that many people can enjoy the management. Otherwise, could be a disaster. I want to explain how selfish. Because I really believe that if you're ambitious and you've got a goal to achieve that goal, you have to run fast. And you don't have to have any distraction.
Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest. Hello and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. I'm delighted that Roberto Costa has joined me in the studio today. Roberto, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and thank you very much for inviting me because it's a really, really great opportunity to talk about myself.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a very busy owner of many restaurants and you're actually in one of them at the moment. So thank you for taking time out such a busy period. Why don't we start by the audience getting to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about who you are and where your current focus is right now.
Of course, I'm Italian, as you can imagine by my accent. So I came in London about 12 years ago in 2012. To try the concept that I opened in Italy since 2002 start from Genova, and then I opened it all around Italy. So we had like 12 restaurants with the same concept that it's called macellaio. Macellaio means butcher in Italy, and it's all about the sustainability, about of course, the cow and the breed. We've got a specific breed from Italy that is Fassona. And I work with the same breed since like 25 years ago. And I wanted to try the concept in a cosmopolitan city where there was a great melting pot. And I thought that at that time, the best city to explain ourselves was London. There was the Olympic Games at that time as well. So we thought that was the right city. And it was the right city. So I really enjoy London, and you know what it wasn't just about, as soon as I arrived in London, it wasn't just about the concept, the restaurants and my professional side. It was about to learn something for myself, to grow as a man, because I think that, melting pot is something magical. So when you find in a different country, so many different culture, and you work every day with, for example, the English people that are really different compared to the Italian one. I think that makes the attitude and makes the character is make you stronger and make you better.
Thank you. And you've done what most of my guests do, which I always expect, is focus on your professional persona. So tell us a little bit more. I know you work very hard, but when you're not working and you have time to look after self, what kind of things do you do in your personal life?
But right now, in 12 years, there are so many different things, because when I arrived here in London, I was 39 and I had many hobbies. Most of them related to my profession, of course, like I'm a wine collector and, I really like to enjoy a nice dinner with friends and so on. And then I start to go around UK because I wanted to see UK because, as an Italian point of view, we are a little bit selfish and arrogant sometimes when we talk about our country because Of course, it's beautiful, and in my opinion, is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. But there is even other countries really nice. So, for example, I remember like 5 years ago when I've been in Cornwall, I was amazed about the cliff. I was amazed about the people and the little villages. So I started to travel, and then in the last 2 years, my kids are growing a lot. So the thing that I like most when I'm not working is just stay with my kids.
Let's go back to when you were a kid. Thank you for that link. And this show is all about how our childhoods, shape us in being successful leaders, both the stability and sometimes the instability of those family institutions. So take us way back to your childhood, Roberto.
It's a long journey, not just because I'm 50, but because I fortunately, I had a lot of different experience. So, but I've got clear in my mind when I was a child, because my family was an humble family. Like, my father used to work in the port of Genoa, and my mom used to do many different works to, to let us live in a proper way. So I cannot say that we were poor, but kind of. And I think about that so many times, because I think that my obsession about food comes from that age. You know why? Because my mom and my parents, they were born just after or during my father, or just after the Second World War. And, Italy was a lost country at that time, with so many difficulties and poverty. And I remember that, for my mom and my father was much more important to have a full fridge than a bank account, because for them food always meant richness. That's why. And I remember really, really clear. That's why every Italian that you probably met or will meet talk about the grandmother, the mother. We are a little bit annoying about that, but because they're like vivid memories, it's like, because for us to eat together was a feast, was an excuse to talk about the past, to live the present, and to dream about the future. Always sit on the table, sharing food. So that's why for us it's really important. For me, especially, it's really important about the food, the industry, and to talk. And it's like really the match in between my DNA and Great Britain made me even better, because I start to think just a little bit out of the box. Because in Italy, when we talk about food as a restaurateur, have to be good. That's it. But then when we talk about the percentages to manage in a proper way the company, it's like a little bit difficult. So when I came here, I understood the importance of the back office, just to match back office and front of house. And I start to enjoy even more my passion, my obsession, let me say, because, many times, people can talk about passion. Everybody can say that they're passionate about something, but there is a big difference. It's a thin line, but there is a big difference in between passionate and obsessed. I think that passion is for the beginner. I think obsessed is to achieve something like unachievable.
I agree. Let's go into that a bit more. I'm really interested in this. I'm really pleased you put it that way. So let's just pick up and the thread of this around obsession, as you mentioned it. And as you started to come into adulthood and you started to have that independence and decide where you were going to go in life, how did that obsession manifest at that point?
Was, I got clear when I decided to keep going and become a waiter. I really got clear because I was invited by a friend of mine in a beautiful place called Le Nozzole. It's a wine farm in Tuscany. And I was invited because I just started to work with my family in a little osteria in the suburb of Genoa in 1990. And this guy was already a great chef in my city in Genoa. And he invited me because he felt the passion at that time that I had, but without, any rules, because my family It wasn't in the restaurant business. So I was like I had to make myself, and I remember I've been there, and I found a beautiful place, an amazing place. Plenty of cypresses, the tree, and the beautiful lands, like, wow. And there was a big table under a tree, full of food, and we really enjoyed 2 days, like there in the wine farm, to understand the grape, to understand the Chianti wine, and blah blah blah. And at that moment, I thought, but really, if I become a waiter, I can enjoy this kind of experiences. I can live this kind of life. And the answer was yes. And from that moment, I started to think that I wanted to become a waiter. Not a manager, GM, operation manager, or whatever, a waiter. And I always enjoy to be a waiter, because it's like when it's not to be like, when you deliver a service in the restaurants at the table, you can deliver to a plumber or a doctor or an industrial guy, a big CEO, whatever. But sit at the table, they are all the same, and you have to know and you have to understand which is the right time when you can talk or not talk, because yourself can be 7 different people. Because, if you enjoy a table with your wife, you've got a kind of attitude. If you enjoy the table with a couple of friends, you got a different attitude. If you go for a work dinner or lunch, you got even another kind of different. So, and I start to understand the time and the method where I have to approach the people. And was the first lesson that I, of course, have got inside, and I try to keep going and keep learning, but was the first sign that I really want to do this kind of profession.
So talk to us a bit more then. Bear in mind you were very happy in that and felt in service of doing that. At what point did your view change about where you might go within the industry after being a waiter? What was the turning point there?
It's like when you start to understand that you can have success, when people in some way please you. And for me, pleased by people means to receive some compliment, to have a big smile, to be recognized by people in my city. So this kind of sensations make you a little bit more comfortable with yourself. And when you are comfortable with yourself, you start to think bigger and bigger. So at that moment, I start to think that I could manage my own restaurant. But I start to understand early, and that was probably the luckiest thing that could happen, that I had to be focused in a method. And I had to create a restaurant that had a very good method to be replicated. Because, the most important thing in our business, you cannot depend from your employee, from the owner, the founder, or whatever, because, you have to have a right method. You have to speak clear with your clientele. And the most important thing is how you manage the restaurant, because everybody can do it. You have to put your company, your work in a way that many people can enjoy the management. Otherwise, could be a disaster. And that's why I start to think in a monothematic restaurant, like in a format or concept. That's why I thought about Macellaio, because Macellaio was a kind of butcher shop with tables. And it was most important to talk about the breed, but was like, the method was clear, because we start to buy the whole cow, to use the whole cow for the sustainability things. Because, when right now sustainable is a really trendy word, sustainable. But 60 years ago, my grandfather was sustainable without even knowing, because for him was absolutely normal to buy a cow, and to respect him, he has to sell the whole cow before to buy another one. Right now, it's a disaster, and sustainable is trendy because when you think about steakhouses, you think about loin, fillet, burger, and that's it. And it's not sustainable. It's a race in between who want to have the best loin, more mature or stuff like that. But wait, we need to go back a little bit and to explain. That's why when I talk about method, I think about Italian restaurants, I talk about biodiversity, and that's why when before I told you about UK, that I want to discover the land, I want to understand a little bit more about the UK biodiversity, because I truly believe that even English people don't know how beautiful is the biodiversity in UK. If you think about the Isle of Skye, you've got the best. I'm talking about food, I'm sorry. But if you think about Isle of Skye, you think about the best langoustine, in my opinion, in the world, with the Croatian one. If you think about the cod, is the best cod in the world. If you think about crab, if you think about the mutton in Yorkshire, you've got the best mutton ever. This kind of stuff, the game meat, it's like, wow, right now is the season of grouse. It's like, unbeatable. It's like, wow. This kind of stuff. And in Italy, for me, it's the same, because Italy, it's even more, unique in a way, because it's a peninsula. So geographic speaking, it's a peninsula with 3 different seas. And if you think, for example, I try to make example to be more clear, But if you think, for example, probably the easier and stupid, in a way, dish ever is caprese. It's just mozzarella, cheese, and tomato. Okay? Just easy. Bah. If you use the fior di latte di Agerola, come from Monti Lattai, Agerolese breed, 12 hours for the acidity process. And then you combine this kind of fior di latte with the piennolo tomato. Piennolo is, he grow in the Vulcan area, and is the only tomato in the world that can age in 1 year. So you pick the tomato now, and you can age the tomato for 1 year, and it start to be sweet and finish to be bitter. So you have to combine the acidity of the mozzarella and the bitterness of the tomato together. But just 2 ingredients, only 2 ingredients, but it's like poetry, So that's why I truly believe about biodiversity.
I love the way you're describing this, and I'm getting a real sense of you and this passion turning into obsession based around your family upbringing and obviously the fridge being full. So I think what our audience will be very interested in, and we'll come a little bit more to your later career, but as you were adjusting from being a waiter, really seeing how the customer reacts to the way you serve them, into management with that obsession that you have for things being as they should be, what kind of challenges did you face as a manager when you were being like that? What were the early challenges?
Thank you very much, because probably it's the best question that they ever made to me. It's because it's been the most difficult period in my life, because when you are obsessed about food, about quality, about biodiversity, about please people, because as a waiter, you cannot wait to go there and, question. The first question is, was good? Everything was fine. Did you enjoy the meal? And the next 5 seconds describe your attitude for the rest of the dinner, right? So when you've got this kind of obsession, and then you have to put like 2 + 2 have to be equal 4. But in Italy, 2 + 2 sometimes is 5, sometimes is 3, sometimes is 3.5, because you don't care. You just do care about please people, So when I started to work and to work hard, to understand better the back office, because as an entrepreneur, the percentages of wage cost and food and beverage cost are like the spinal of your industry, because you have to really take under control this kind of percentage. Otherwise, you don't make profit. you just, lose money. But in our industry, it's even worse because you don't understand immediately. You don't feel immediately that you are losing money because you've got cash flow. So you generate cash flow, but if you don't understand to take under control these two percentages, you start to make that and that and that. So I had very, very huge difficulties because for me it was like, why? This is the product. I use the product. I put this price and blah, 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 blah. I didn't know about the gross profit, the GP, the wastage, the yield, this kind of stuff that is like can change dramatically your position. And it's been really, really hard because it's like, it's difficult to match this kind of thing because you cannot understand. It's like, no, this is good. People like it. I did the price because the opponent is like, has got this kind of price. So everything is fine, but it's more deep than that. And it's not romantic as it is the biodiversity, to talk about biodiversity. So you have to prove yourself, but as soon as you start to understand, will become better and better because you can combine two different things and you learn. And the most important thing for a human being, in my opinion, is to learn. So it's being hard.
I agree. No, let's talk a bit more about that learning. So when you came to London in 2012, that melting pot that you described, but a real opportunity, from a leadership perspective and managing others and the restaurateurs that you were managing at that point and the teams, what did you find most challenging in terms of coming to London at that time?
The most challenging thing was to follow the rules about the back office. Was the most difficult things. And but the beauty of London, in my opinion, and I hope that we won't lose this kind of melting pot, and I explain you why. It's because London, it's always been a melting pot. Plenty of different culture, and these different culture together push up the city, in my opinion. Because if you think about food and you think about different restaurants, London is the only place that I travel a lot, that you can try in a vertical way all the different gastronomic culture. For example, you can have a great street food in some market about Indian food, but then you can go in Mayfair and eat in 3 Michelin star. For the Japanese, the same, the Chinese, the same, etc., etc. So you go every single different levels, from the bottle, from the humble one to the rich to the posh one. So you can understand even better, you can go deep. So that's the beauty. But I hope that won't change because in the last 3 years, it started to become a little bit too much Asian, in my opinion. And it's not a racist thing, because I really love, believe me, all different kind of culture. One of my best friend and the CFO of the company is from Pakistan, is Muslim. So you can imagine, I'm really open-minded and embrace all the cultures, but it's becoming really Islamic right now, London. I can feel it. And it's not about the religion. It's about the taste. It's about the difference, because I always talk about food. But if you think about, I really like Indian food. I like curry so much. But I go to eat curry 1 per month, maybe not even. So, it's the same for them with other culture, in my opinion. If London lose the mix, the melting pot, they start to become a little bit more like Asian or Italian or European, start to lose the beauty, There is, I don't know if in English is preponderant. I don't know, in Italian is preponderante. That means that the majority of the people is one ethnic culture, When start to become too much, it start to change even the city. And I don't want this kind of stuff. I like really enjoy and continue to grow.
Understand. And did you say that you were 50 years old now? Did I hear that right?
50, yeah, 50.
Yeah. So I'm 55. So obviously it's the new 45 and 50 is the new 40. We're still very young and energetic. But as you are 50,
Absolutely.
we have a different lens. We have grandchildren sometimes around us or in families. And so we become the grandfather and grandmothers in those families. So what would you say is the biggest difference for you now as a 50-year-old compared to maybe 20 years ago about the way that you view life?
I became weaker. And you know why? No, not for the body, not for nothing like that. I became weaker because I've got 3 kids. The first one is a girl of 23 years old. And I was 27, 28 when I had Andrea, you know. And to achieve my goals, I always been selfish. But I want to explain how selfish. Because I really believe that, if you're ambitious and you've got a goal to achieve that goal, you have to run fast and you don't have to have any distraction. Just think about the goal and achieve the goal. When you achieve the goal, I'm probably the most generous person that I ever met. So every time that I achieve a goal, that I did something, I always share with my family, with my kids, of course, with the friends sometimes, and stuff like that. But I had to think about the goals and achieve them without think about family, hypocrite things like, no, about family first, bullshit for me. I'm sorry about that. Was like, think about the goals. At 50, with 2 kids, 2 boys, 3 and 7, I became weaker because I have no anymore this kind of attitude. And when I go in a goal to achieve, I start to run and then think about Cesare, think about Bowie, and I become like, weaker. And I have no the same attitude as before. So that's worrying me because it's the time, probably is the most challenged time that I ever felt. So I have to be like, I have to race and I have to run really fast without any distraction. But it's like, I don't know how to explain. It's like inside me. So that's the most
No, I understand.
different
And
thing.
yeah, and that's really interesting because I guess what we're talking about here is there's probably somewhere in between which feels about right when you're a 50-year-old that you didn't know when you were a 30-year-old. So if there's one piece of advice that you could give to your 30-year-old self who was very focused and achieving the goal, and even though you were sharing after the event, probably didn't have so much time for people around you to share as you were going for that goal, what piece of advice would you give to that 30-year-old if you could go back in time?
To think a couple of times more before to react. Yeah, it's the only advice because it's obvious that I could do exactly the same. Because if I think where I was starting and what I achieved, not even in the best dream in my nights, so I cannot say, but it's too obvious to say, the same things, blah, 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 blah. No, I could do much better because I react too fast. Sometimes, because on the other hand, this kind of attitude made me faster, but sometimes I did 5 steps behind and 7 back. So it's like, yeah.
Super. I've got 2 more questions for you left, Roberto, and we're coming towards the end of our time. The first one is advice to other people out there. This is your perspective. We're not saying they should take it, but I really want to tap into if somebody out there has some kind of passion which is verging on obsession about something they really want to do in life, and yet something's holding them back. They haven't had the family background you had to really support that. What advice would you give them to follow that feeling, even though it's risky, it's probably going to be, difficult to do? What advice would you give them to follow their obsession?
2 things. Don't think about plan B and plan C, but think just about one way to achieve, because you have to, when I started to think about the possibility to fail, I failed. Believe me. Yeah. All the time that I didn't think about that, I made the best things ever. No plan B, no plan C. There is only one plan. That's it. That's the most beautiful advice. And to be focused and don't change ideas too often. I think that I achieved I did a very good career in my life because I understood very, very, very in an early time what I wanted to do. Like I was focused. I decided to do the waiter at 17 years old, and I did that for my life, the whole life. So I was more focusing. And, there was no excuse. But if I fail here, I do something else. Because the time that you lose thinking about, but this one, I'm sorry, in Italian. I can do this, I can do that. You lose your time and you will be a disaster.
Sure, thank you. That's really good advice for people to take on board. One question for you now to finish up. I'm really interested in Roberto Costa the next 10 years. You'll be 60 in 10 years from now. So tell us a bit more about what are you going to be in service of for the next decade? You obviously have been successful to date, but what's left for you to achieve as a human being in terms of your full potential, and what is that in service of?
I started a new kind of, let me say, career. I don't know if it's right, but let me say that. Let me call that, because it's like I became the Italian president of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry in UK just a couple of months ago. So I really like this kind of opportunity. It's for charity, of course. It's not a professional thing, but give me the opportunity to meet new people, to engage, relationship with people much more interesting than me, and I can learn and keep learning. So that's a great thing. I want to find another concept about restaurants. Let me say the last one, to go around the world with the new concept. That's what I want to do.
Fantastic. Well, I'm very excited for you in doing that. I want to say thank you for coming on the show today. I've really been fascinated by this early obsession from Italian family, and I can understand that and feel it and see that in terms of the last 40, 50 years for you. I'm sure all the people that are watching this and listening to this, again, gain some advice, some knowledge, some resonance to their story about how they can follow their passions so they can feel fulfilled in life. So, Roberto, once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.